The day Bison graced your village was the most important day of your life. But for me, it was Tuesday.
The actor delivering these lines was already seriously ill, and this strange video game villain would become his final theatrical film role. Why might Raúl Juliá's most outrageous roles might be his most important? He was a classically trained stage actor who could bring real weight and serious drama, but he could also turn Gomez Addams and Bison into unforgettable icons. And the way he approached those final roles says a great deal about the actor and the man behind them. Before Raúl Juliá became a familiar face on screen, he was already a major force on the stage. After moving to New York in the 1960s, his early years were difficult. Juliá worked in small productions and became involved with the off-Broadway theater before joining Joseph Papp's New York Shakespeare Festival.
I still work whenever I can with the New York Shakespeare Festival. Joe Papp was one of my mentors, one of the people that when I first started in New York really gave me the opportunity to be an actor and show whatever I could show.
Papp became one of the most important figures in his development. Juliá performed Shakespeare in Central Park and established himself as a serious classical actor long before Hollywood audiences knew his name. He later moved to Broadway, where he appeared in productions like The Two Gentlemen of Verona, Nine and Dracula, earning 4 Tony nominations along the way. And even after his film career took off, he never left the theater behind. Stage acting remained one of the most important parts of his life, right up to his final years. But where did all the theatrical talent and command on the stage really came from? Raúl Rafael Juliá y Arcelay was born on March 9, 1940 in San Juan, Puerto Rico, and grew up in a prosperous, close-knit family. His father was an electrical engineer and businessman who founded a popular restaurant. Some biographies even credited with serving one of Puerto Rico's earliest commercially available pizzas. Now that is a piece of trivia. His mother was a mezzo-soprano who sang in a church choir, so music and performance were part of his life from an early age. He appeared in student productions of Hamlet, Julius Caesar, King Lear and The Tempest. That early Shakespearean training probably explains a lot about his acting style, posture and theatrical energy he later brought to so many of his roles. His parents hoped he would choose a more conventional career, especially law. He briefly attended Fordham University in New York, then returned home and completed his degree at the University of Puerto Rico. While studying, he performed in local theater and nightclub shows. Then Broadway actor Orson Bean saw him singing Old San Juan and encouraged him to pursue acting professionally in New York. Juliá took the advice and moved to Manhattan in the mid-1960s. We have already explored his stage career, but which early roles have transformed Raúl Juliá from the star on the stage to the star on the screen? He had already made a few minor guest appearances in television shows like NYPD and McCloud, but his first real feature film role came in The Panic in Needle Park alongside a young Al Pacino and Kitty Wynn. The film follows the lives of heroin addicts in New York. It is a bleak, uncompromising story with some great performances, and while Juliá's role is not especially large, he is already memorable here. Around the same time, he also appeared on Sesame Street, playing Rafael, a repairman and one of the program's early recurring Latino characters.
1, 2.
In Spanish, you would say, Yo tengo dos manos.
A few years later, he appeared in the neo-noir supernatural horror film Eyes of Laura Mars, and while he is not the main antagonist here, he still manages to come across as very sleazy and unpleasant.
Oh, come on. You know I only came back to be near you.
He had a much larger role in Francis Ford Coppola's One from the Heart, where he plays Ray, a waiter who dreams of becoming a pianist and singer. It's a film packed with music, rhythm and colors. So Juliá had successfully made the transition from stage to screen, worked with major directors and shared scenes with remarkable actors. But which role finally became his true breakthrough? Okay, we are getting to the screen legacy part of his career, and bear with me because there are quite a few films I want to mention here, because they matter, and so does what Juliá brought to each of them. In 1982's Tempest, he played Calibanos, and this was one of the roles that really made audiences and critics remember his name, and of course his face. It is a loose modern-day adaptation of Shakespeare's The Tempest, so it feels fitting that the Shakespearean role was the one that finally put him on the radar. He plays Calibanos with so much ease and heart that even his darker tendencies become part of what makes him such a joy to watch.
Okay!
Kiss of the Spider-Woman is set in a Brazilian prison during a military dictatorship. William Hurt plays a gay man who is locked in a cell with a political prisoner played by Juliá. Most of the film takes place inside that cell, with the two men talking, while Hurt's character also narrates a series of fictional films within the film. Juliá plays a restrained, almost broken character, and he does it with perfect control. There are no theatrics here, just authenticity and a great deal of pain. He also worked with Sidney Lumet in the whodunit thriller The Morning After, sharing the screen with Jane Fonda and Jeff Bridges. In Tequila Sunrise, he appeared alongside Kurt Russell and Mel Gibson, playing the imposing Comandante Escalante.
You go to a good deal of trouble to explain an inconsequential event, Lieutenant.
His next major lead role, in Romero, was important not only because his performance was singled out by critics and audiences as the strongest element of the film, but also because of the subject itself. It is a biographical drama about the Salvadorian Archbishop Óscar Romero, who organized peaceful protests against the violent military regime, eventually at the cost of his own life. Juliá was a strong supporter of humanitarian causes involving hunger, children, and Latin American communities.
I've been working with the Hunger Project since 1977, so my commitment really, and as well as the commitment of 6.2 million people over the world, is to the end of hunger by the end of the century.
So for him, this role was personal, and it was another way to express his own beliefs and ideals. He starred in Roger Corman's Frankenstein Unbound, which is a surprisingly wide film. A scientist played by John Hurt is transported from the year 2031 back to 1817, along with his sports car, and ends up working with Raúl Juliá's Victor Frankenstein. That probably tells you everything you need to know. In Mac the Knife, he plays Mac Heath, a charming, womanizing criminal in 19th century London. In Presumed Innocent, he plays Harrison Ford's lawyer and brings far more humor, warmth and personality to a role that could have easily felt like a filler in the hands of a lesser actor.
Very convincing.
Now we get to a proper main antagonist role with Strom in Clint Eastwood's The Rookie.
What? And miss out on all the fun?
He is a classic sleazy mob boss surrounded by henchmen and henchwomen, and Juliá finally gets to bring back all the theatrical energy that had been toned down in some of his more restrained roles. This part needs it demands it, and it is a lot of fun.
But first I have to tie up a few loose ends.
And now, one of my favorite roles from him, Gomez Addams in the Addams Family films.
Showtime!
And yes, of course he's not technically a villain, but outside the strange logic of these films, he probably would be. I just love the way how Juliá brings this goofy, larger-than-life character to the screen. Gomez is the patriarch of the family, but he's also insecure, emotional and perfectly willing to take advice from his wife. He cannot control his feelings, but he does not really want to either. He's always ready to throw himself into whatever the moment demands.
I'd do anything for him. At his request, I would rip out my eyes.
Why wait?
His relationship with Morticia, played by Angelica Houston, is also remarkable.
Gomez is very much in love with Morticia. They have a very passionate, romantic relationship.
You frightened me. Do it again.
They could have easily been stiff, distant parents, but instead the film makes them playful, passionate and completely in love.
When Morticia speaks French to Gomez, Gomez completely loses control and goes for it.
And because of that, we are willing to forgive them almost anything. He took the role completely seriously, played it with a huge heart and left a deep mark. I just love these films. I grew up with them, the atmosphere, the dark jokes and the performances. Gomez and the rest of the Addams Family are part of my childhoods, and I'm already looking forward to the next time I sit down and watch them again. But what happens when an actor known from giving everything to every role is asked to do it one final time, but this time seriously ill? So let's talk about Street Fighter, one of his final roles. He accepted the role of M. Bison partly because his two sons were fans of the Street Fighter games.
My children play the video game, and as soon as I mentioned the title of the film, all of a sudden their faces lit up.
He wanted to make something they would be excited to see. At the time, Juliá had been privately suffering from stomach cancer for approximately 3 years. Earlier in 1994, while making The Burning Season in Mexico, he became seriously ill and required hospital treatment. After recovering, he returned and finished the production despite considerable weight loss and physical weakness. When he arrived for Street Fighter, director Steven E. D'Souza was shocked by how thin and frail he appeared. The original plan was to film Juliá's dialogue-heavy scenes early while the less experienced cast members continued their martial arts training, but that plan had to be reversed. The production delayed much of Juliá's works to give him time to recover and regain some weight. This reduced the training period available to several other actors and added further problems to an already chaotic production. His physical condition also meant that the fight sequences had to be designed and shot carefully. He couldn't perform like a fully healthy actor, so they used creative solutions, camera angles, and of course the character's technologically enhanced abilities to help him out. And I think this actually elevated M. Bison above the rest of the fighters. While the others were constantly moving, crouching, jumping and fighting from every possible position, Bison remained upright, imposing and menacing without needing much movement at all. It created an amazing contrast and placed him in a completely different category from the regular fighters. And here is the thing that makes this performance and Juliá's attitude towards it so incredible and genuinely worth admiring. The story itself, let's be honest, is paper thin. It is based on a very fun video game, but still a video game with very little backstory. The character is essentially a caricature of villainous dictators, but Juliá took him seriously. He studied real authoritarian leaders and gave the character a taste of grand opera, Shakespeare and old-fashioned Bond villains.
All I want to do is to create the perfect genetic soldier. Not for power, not for evil, but for good.
That was beautiful.
And while this was true throughout his entire career, he took even the most playful roles seriously and made them that much better. This time it was different. He was gravely ill. He must have understood how serious his condition had become, yet he still put every bit of talent, energy and authenticity he had into the role. And he did it while surrounded by a chaotic production, an allegedly drug-fueled Van Damme, and some of the most paper-thin characters imaginable. Juliá suffered a stroke in October 1994 and died on October 24th at the age of 54. Street Fighter was released approximately 2 months later, meaning he never saw the completed film. Although the film received overwhelmingly negative reviews, Juliá's performance was frequently singled out as its strongest element. Over time, the film acquired cult status and M. Bison became one of his most quoted and recognized roles. But what makes his final roles the most important ones? He gave us so many memorable characters, quotes and moments that they are almost impossible to count. He also set an incredible example by pushing through such serious health problems and still giving everything he had to his final roles. But I think it worked the other way too. The work itself may have distracted him from his suffering and from the reality of his situation. As long as he was working, he was still alive, still creating, still present and still a driving force. People who are leaving this world often desperately want to make a mark, to leave something behind for the people who love them. And while Juliá's body of work was already more than enough to secure his legacy, perhaps he left his deepest mark in those final years. Not necessarily because of the films or the roles themselves, but because how he approached them, refusing to let the illness take the best of him. This was my mini documentary about Raúl Juliá. If you enjoyed it, stick around, there's a lot more coming. Thanks for watching.